what we've learned in our marriage is to stop and not run and just say, how can I support you? Do you want to just vent and have me listen? Is this about you or is this about me? And then what would your support look like?
Welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our Crucible Project podcast. I'm so glad that you tuned in again to be a part of this. And man, we have some amazing information, amazing guests that we get to talk to today. So oftentimes, one or the other in a marriage is going to be experiencing Crucible by themselves. Rarely, I guess more now, are they going to be sharing that experience as a married couple. And so we have Peter and Dawn Aldrich. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, James.
Good, James.
Good. It's great to have you guys on here to talk about the benefits, the warnings, the experiences you guys have had in going through Crucible, even at different times in your life and in your marriage. And so, man, go ahead and just let us know when you each did your initial weekend and where. Let's start with that.
Okay. Yeah. So I did my initial weekend in March 2016 and flew out to Chicago and did my initial weekend up in Wisconsin at Wesley Woods. And that's where I did mine.
And then I joined Crucible in April of 2019. I believe it was at Riverwoods in St. Charles during a very cold spring snowstorm.
Wow. And I bet you have a lot of memories from that, just
yes.
doing your initial weekend in the cold.
Yeah.
Yep. Man, I love hearing those stories of people saying, yeah, we crawled through the snow and we and the rain and the mud. It's like, oh, that's what it's all about. So no, that's great. So Peter, you started several years before Dawn went through her initial weekend. And so in many ways, you were doing your own work. I'm not going to ask you what your work is, but what I would like to know is some of the benefits that came just in that time before Dawn joined in and started doing Crucible.
Yeah, so I think, for me, when I went on my initial weekend, it was interesting because it's like trying to unpack some of the things that were going on in my life. And I'm like, it's like, I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot in my life that is big or, those things that are those problems or whatnot. And yet when I got on my initial weekend, I started to unpack things and realize that there were woundings that happened that I didn't even realize. And so as I started doing my own work, I started recognizing some of the things that I had gone through in my life and how that had really affected me. Even though it wasn't any big trauma or anything like that, it's still a wounding in my life. And it still affected me and made me look at life in a particular way or with a particular viewpoint that I didn't even realize I was bringing to the table. Yeah. And so I started unpacking some of that stuff for myself just, a couple of years before Dawn actually did her weekend. And so I started working on myself and starting to be able to get a better handle on some of those things that were going on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And in working through that, Dawn started doing her initial weekend. And then what are some things that came out of that from just kind of doing your work on your own to now doing it as a couple? That had to be a pretty large change in your marriage and in your life. Would you say it was a pretty big change?
I would say it was definitely a change. I think we started looking at how we both bring different viewpoints to the table that we hadn't seen before.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. We bring this perspective of our lives, our families, how we grew up. We bring those to the table in terms of our conversations with one another. And I don't think we even recognized that ahead of time and how that those upbringings and those things that happen in our lives really affect our viewpoint of one another and each other and how we actually handle those things.
Wow.
And even how we interact with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it brought a clearer language to our relationship. Where an argument was an argument before, there were hurt feelings, sometimes unfair conversations. And so learning how to clear energy, learning how to talk cleanly was an incredible bonus to us, not just as a couple, but us as a family with adult children. We could bring that clear language to the table for everybody. And I think we started unpacking wounds that we both knew we had, but it wasn't now just unpacking it with each other. We had a community, or he had a community.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just on me to deal with everything. And I think that when I came into the picture, that just brought us closer because we were doing our own work and then coming back as a couple and saying, this is what I discovered.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the thing, for us, being able to sit down and unpack, like, just in terms of having clean language, this is what happened. This is data, right? And now these are my opinions about how, or my judgments about how those things are happening or what's going on around them. And being able to look at that is like, oh, those are mine. Right. Wow. That's not really what happened, but this is a thing that I'm taking away from that, and being able to start to reframe some of our conversation that we have with one another is like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. And this is the way I'm looking at this. And to some extent, for us, not taking that on individually she's not taking on to herself how I'm looking at something, or I'm not taking on how she's looking at something, because that's her perspective and not necessarily my own.
Wow.
It's actually pretty hard too. Especially in a marriage where we've already had a context in how we were relating to one another and how we related. And so now this brought in a different perspective on how we can or how we could. And sometimes that was challenging because, you have history, things, ways that you're related to each other that have been set in stone for, 20 years. And, and now you're trying to think about doing that in a different way. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a great point. Yeah, just thinking about that over the amount of time, because you guys have been married for how many years?
39.
Only 39. That's incredible.
Only 39, yeah.
We're so young.
After 39 years, you guys sometimes have had the same arguments with the same outcomes for so many years. It's almost like a cyclical argument that you know exactly where it's going to go, what he's going to say, what she's going to say, and how it's going to end, right?
Yep.
And so now, you're given this new tool, this new language, and you're actually able to take responsibility for your part and not for their part. And it changes the outcome of the argument that you guys have kind of been comfortable with for a long time, right?
Or the actions, right? So I've learned.
How did you do that?
So it's just learning. Like we always say when you're on a weekend, another person's work is your work too. And so it's watching. It's not always your work that the light bulb goes off on. It's sometimes when you're processing someone else or you're watching someone else process through their stuff, you're like, oh, okay, that hit home. And so, and it's also the work after. The small groups work is incredibly precious and powerful. So I was just sharing this story with a group that I lead, and we were talking about anger this week. And I said, what we've learned in our marriage is to stop and not run and just say, how can I support you? Do you want to just vent and have me listen? Is this about you or is this about me? Yeah. And then what would your support look like? Is it a hug? Is it listening? Is it doing something? Are there goals? And so that's really difficult in the heat of the moment. But over the past 4 years for me, that's what I've learned, because I was a flight person, like just turn your back and walk away and let it diffuse, which for him
is infuriating.
Oh, wow.
So we were opposites when it came to discussions.
Yeah. Man, Peter, what do you have to say about that? That's incredible.
Yeah, and I think there's for me on the flip side of it too, it was being able to recognize, and I found being able to recognize the emotions aspect for myself that were coming up during the heat of a conversation. And even as even some, there are times today that I can still feel that emotional reaction, and I say, "Oh, this is where it would go sideways, right about here." I was like, "Okay, I'm owning this emotion. I'm owning this anger. I'm owning the fear that I'm feeling. Or the sadness that's going on that I'm feeling happening right now. I'm recognizing the fact. I don't need to react to that. I can own the emotional reaction to it, and still have a conversation that doesn't have to be at high volumes."
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Let's put it that way.
That's great. Man, that's amazing. And, I don't know anywhere else that you can have these totally different experiences and yet come together after the fact and be able to see this kind of benefit to your marriage. Even just the arguments. So you said your adult children. So have you been able to use some of these tools and practices in even communicating with them in new ways?
Yes, it diffuses some conversations where I can speak only for myself, where I would normally get defensive. We can stop and use that clean language that we learn and just diffuse the emotion of it, like put it aside to get down to the core of what's really happening and tell me more, and just stopping and listening more than reacting. Or I'm reminded sometimes if I go back into those old patterns of reaction, hey, can you just listen to me? And then I realize what's happening. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. What do you think, Peter, as far as how it's maybe developed or changed the way you're a father? Are you grandparents?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, maybe even in your grandparenting, how it's changed the way you respond.
Yeah, I think even with that, I think with our grands, seeing some of their emotional reaction, and I think back to old habits or old ways that we would have reacted to scenarios like that, and it would have been different. I think we're allowing them to feel their emotion and know their emotion, and to allow them to say, "Hey, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to recognize the fact that this isn't going the way that you want it, and it's okay." And allowing that, where I think for me growing up, I was told, don't feel that way. Oh, don't be sad. Don't be angry. You can't be angry. What are you angry about? Don't be angry. You don't be sad, right? Not allowed to have and to own those types of emotions that were going on inside of me. And it's just the way I learned how to handle my life as I went through it. And so this has brought a different perspective for me to be able to say, these are okay. They may not be great, may not be fun, may not like them, but they're emotions and they're okay. And so bringing that perspective to our grandkids is kind of a unique perspective for them, and being able to be supportive to them and tender with them as opposed to any other way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ways that you remember being addressed and being, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people listening in, they probably have memories right now going through their heads thinking about ways that they were either shut down or talked to that, this is uncomfortable for me, so you need to change the way you feel about that,
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's anyone alive that hasn't been through that with a teacher or with a, Sunday school leader or a youth director, whatever, even just a boss at work. I think we've all been shut down at times. And so to have this other narrative that we can use in life. And I think it would benefit everybody to hear your grandparent names. What do your grandkids call you?
Grams and Pops.
Grams and Pops. So either grandparents or we're breakfast cereal.
I love that. Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah, and your grandkids are little Crispies. I think that's great.
That's funny.
I don't know if they would agree with that.
But you can use it if you want to. I don't own it. But
we don't have very little ones anymore. So
Oh, okay. Well, man, I am so I love hearing those stories. I love hearing how it's changed the narrative. I want to kind of switch the conversation right now because you guys did something that impacted me that I want to talk a little bit about a little bit. So last year at the annual gathering, you guys hosted a breakout session that really just blew my mind. It was about starting a new community together, and you guys tell us a little bit about your community because you've been there since the birth of this community, isn't that right?
Pretty much. I mean, there was a community here that I stepped into. It was a smaller community of men who were meeting.
Okay.
There are a number of folks in the community who have been around for a long time. John Ivan, is kind of our patriarch in terms of the community here. He's the one who really kind of got things rolling for us. And so I stepped into that men's community, but we were a small little group of 4 or 5 guys who are meeting, every other week in a soul group. So there's not much more than that. But there's always been this vision of, can we grow? Can we bring a retreat here to the Northeast? Can we do that? So it was this effort to continue to talk to other men, to do our own work, and to expose others to soul work so they can get the same transformation and healing that we were getting. And, so we slowly grew and got to this final critical mass here in the men's community where we stepped into starting and holding retreats here. And then we've grown then. Now we've got multiple groups running and some online groups running. So we've helped spawn some sister communities and groups around throughout the Northeast and east of the Mississippi. I like to say here let's put it this way, in the Northeast or the Eastern time zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we started and kind of grew from there. Yeah, and then it wasn't a few years later that the women's community started to sprout up.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the winter or fall of 2018 where Chris Cleghorn was sitting with us at our dining room table and just said, Dawn, would you? Is this something you want to get involved in? Like, what do you see? And I think since we were dating, even like authenticity mattered. I remember running a VBS. We wrote our own VBS program when we were engaged way back when. And it was called Cheap Talk, like words matter. And so even back at the beginning of our relationship, authenticity and, clean talk was really important, but it was more the community. And so I said to Chris, if I can develop through the Crucible Project this authentic community where integrity and accountability and just growing to be the best person that you can be, being the person that God wants you to be, I'm all in. And so that's how my journey started, with just saying yes, like I'm willing. And so got in on the ground floor April 2019 with that, initial pilot, and then staffing, all over where I could and recruiting women that I knew from the East Coast to say, are you willing to link arms with me and bring this to the East? And I had a resounding yes with core people. And my challenge was get 2 others totally different from you, link arms with them to be leaders with you, and bring 10 more. You get 10 more initiated who have staffed. We will do a weekend in the East Coast. And so we worked hard. We worked hard to do that, and COVID hit. So we even worked through it.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, we worked through it.
Man, that's amazing. I hope that everyone listening in just heard the importance of what you just said. The plan that you made, the small goals that you set to reach. I think that's important. What were some of the steps that you took, or the small accomplishments or goals that you guys set early on that has helped you become stronger today?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think on the men's side there was this concerted effort. I mean, small steps, but there were some getting, because when we started, we didn't have a local retreat. So for us, if you wanted to do an initial weekend, you had to go somewhere. Chicago, Texas, Colorado, wherever they went. And so we had men who went all over to go to initial weekends, and we didn't have any weekends here to staff either.
Yeah.
So, and to get men to a place where, they've staffed a weekend, and we kind of had the same directive. You need a core group of, I think for us it was 12 men who will commit to staffing the weekend and who have already previously staffed. I mean, there were road trips. There are road trips with 7 guys driving in a van to staff a weekend in St. Charles, Illinois. And the road trip from Connecticut out, and the stories that were told on that are somewhat momentous. So it's those little things to be able to band together as a community, to be able to accomplish the things that to get to that place, right? To get to that critical mass of being able to make another step forward, to do something new. But we all had to work together. It was something that we worked together to accomplish.
I think also for me, the goals were not only just to get the community started, it was to work on myself, accomplish the growth group, attend a growth group for myself and, to the end. And then for me, becoming a group leader was really important because I saw the value in continuing your work with a small group of women that are full of integrity and will be accountable and hold you accountable.
Yeah.
That to me is the sweet spot. It's not that for everyone, but that was my first goal, was not only to just start my community, but I needed to be growing. I didn't want to ask my women in this community to do something I wasn't willing to do myself.
Wow.
So I attended the groups, and then I apprentice led with a leader that was, I don't know, she was assigned or volunteered to really mentor me and whoever came up alongside me as leaders. And so for a year, Sharon Cooper was my mentor, and I just was shoulder to shoulder with her with growth groups and a development group, and just learned and taught with her. By the end, I was teaching. And,
wow.
Once you get the sign off, you're on your own. And so my goals were to accomplish that first, then to work on becoming a retreat leader and or a carpet leader, which I'm still working towards and not sure which one I want to land on.
Sure.
Because group leading is my sweet spot.
Yeah.
So this is where people who are not like me have to come into the picture, and to allow those women into my life and be open to different opinions. So yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So one of the things that we talk about with Crucible is that you can't tell other people's stories. And so I know as you're leading, as you're doing groups, as you're working in Crucible, man, you guys must have to watch what you say to each other quite a bit. How do you deal with that dynamic? That, hey, tell me about your meeting. Yeah, I can't. That doesn't.
It was
always...
good.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, so
it's so hard because you get so excited, right? You just want to share, and I'm like, and he and I both warn each other, you've got nope,
off the reservation.
Don't do that. So we've learned to say, man, they worked really hard tonight, and I'm so proud of this group, or I'll tell my story, what I did in a group. I can tell my story, and then just, man, those women are working hard, and I'm so proud of them, and this really jazzes me. And
wow, that's good.
Just general stuff. I love seeing the light bulbs go off.
Yeah,
how precious it was to see how they supported, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sharing without sharing, right?
Yeah,
that's really it, is to be able to convey, because really when it comes down to it, is we're really excited for somebody else's growth. We're excited to share about the new things that are happening, that other people are stepping into, to see how people are transitioning and how they're growing. And you can say that, right? You can say, hey, I'm excited about the fact that there's a lot of work happening tonight and that people are growing, without sharing the details or who or what the work was. And yeah, there has to be kind of this wall of information that doesn't get passed between us, between the different groups that we're in and the people who see. So we have to kind of keep portions of it really close, our play our cards really close to the vest, and yet there's other portions of it where we can give our own reactions to what's going on and how we're seeing things, and even our own work.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say even the names of the people in our groups, I pretty much hold that close to my chest until I have permission to say something general. Yeah.
No, that's good. And I know that's part of what we want, is to create a safe space and honor those people that we see doing their hard work. And man, it's amazing to see you guys doing that, and you make it look easy. And so I think that's a benefit for so many of us. Is there anything else you'd like to say about how you're just doing this work together has been a benefit, or maybe a caution for those listening? Is there anything else, as we just finish off this podcast, anything else you'd like to say?
It's hard. It's hard work. Building a community from scratch. I will not lie. There is sacrifice financially and emotionally. And even in your marriage, there's time alone and a time separated from each other. And I think last year, I knew Pete's really goal driven, and it was his goal to be retreat leader and a carpet leader, and a group. So all these goals, which meant a lot of time away from home, and he wanted to do it quickly. He's not someone who'll just sit around. And so I was willing, I had to be willing, and he asked me to be willing to let him go. And now 4 years later, and I know the work that it takes, I've asked, time out, let's have some balance.
Yeah.
Family does need to come back into the picture a little more often. Our relationship needs more connection. So that's, balance is key, and it is hard work. And you need to talk about what are your goals as a couple in your separate communities as well as together. I think if you do it without permission, there's a lot of resentment and grudges that can build up. And so I would always recommend that a couple talk together.
Yeah.
And come to an agreement as to what that is.
Yeah, I think the thing is to be, if you want to call it a cautionary tale, is that life can revolve around the ministry, and all of your conversation can revolve around what you're doing, the groups or whatever, and there has to be more than that. I think the caution is that don't let it become all consuming. You need to be able to do other things as well together, and to do those other things as well as you do whatever you're doing in ministry, right?
Yeah.
So,
wow. Oh, that's wonderful. Guys, that's gold. I think it is for any couple that's looking to join in this, and in leadership specifically, but also just doing life together as redwoods, both male and female. And so thank you for your time today, guys. This has been, I don't know, it's been enriching to me, and I hope it was exciting to share and be able to explain what it's like to be on this journey together. So thank you, guys. Man, I want to sign off by saying one thing, that this is, you guys are strong. You're a powerhouse couple, and it's been neat to see you guys. Not neat to drive with you, Peter, in Chicago on the streets, but I love this from a distance. This is great. So,
are you saying he drives haphazardly?
Yeah, no, Peter's a great driver. If people would want to reach out to you and chat with you further, can we get your permission to do
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And don't be the Lone Rangers, even as a couple. You do need to build your community. It's not all up to you. It's about the team serving one another. So the best advice I ever got was choose people that are not like you to lead with you. And don't do it alone. We just don't do leadership alone. And so that's gold. I'll leave you with that.
It is, absolutely. And that's a great place to end it. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening in, everybody. And we hope you were blessed, and that maybe there was something here that will help you as you're starting out your leadership journey or facilitation journey. We're here in this journey together. So let's do it together. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.